All right, Anu and Suv. Um, so this is my vision for what the kind of video I was thinking about. Basically, I would present to you and review um, a number of different themes related to The Last Dance. I basically won't cover Michael Jordan because everyone knows who Michael Jordan is, but I wanted to start first with like the other Bulls. So I was going to do like Scottie Pippen, Steve Kerr, Dennis Rodman. And before, I hope you guys can see this, and then you guys can ask me any questions, and then I can tailor it towards kind of the questions you'll ask me. You'll just ask the same questions again, and any others you think of when we were recording. But this is how I would kind of envision it. So Scottie Pippen, right? Let's go to Scottie Pippen. Scottie Pippen is the complete midfielder, all right? He played from 1985 to 2004. He was extremely versatile and primarily played the small forward position, but revolutionized the game by kind of being the first point forward. So basically being a longer wing player, which is a small forward, shooting guard, maybe power forward, uh, that can also be a point guard, can also initiate the offense, call the plays, run the plays that the coach would call out, um, and handle the ball right at the top of the key. So those are kind of his basketball rules. And he could be a shooting guard too, if you really need it. He could defend every position. That's mostly so. And he's probably less valuable as a shooting guard because he, as we'll talk about later, he's not exactly the best offensive creator for his own self. He's good at creating for other people, but he never averaged more than like 22 points a game, which is decent, but not spectacular for a superstar. Now, if you translate those to football positions, these are a few samples that I suggested. And we'll get into this more later. He, I think, would be best played as a holding midfielder or destroyer, but you can also be box to box, maybe attacking midfielder or center back in specific situations. And his best attributes are he's industrious, he's creative, he's extremely athletic, and he's versatile. He can be both a playmaker and an amazing defender. If we get into a little bit more details, Scottie Pippen's personality, as you might have seen in The Last Dance, was very intelligent, very cerebral, and again, very versatile. He filled in all the minor details which Michael Jordan did not want to handle. While Michael Jordan was the offensive superstar, also defensively amazing, but the guy who would carry the load, he would be the one that would stand in the spotlight and take all the pressure. Pippen filled in all the background roles. He was not someone who, like Jordan, would almost threaten, would cajole, would basically use his force of personality to challenge his teammates to succeed. Pippen, as many teammates said, was led by encouragement. He was someone that maybe would take a teammate aside that had been cussed up by Michael Jordan and say, I believe in you, etc. So he's more of a background leader, and a quiet leader as well. Play style wise, he has legendary positional flexibility, as I mentioned before. He does all the dirty work. He will gladly defend the opponent's best player. And that was best exemplified by when he defended Magic Johnson in the 1990 finals. And that completely disrupted the Lakers offense and was a key to the Bulls' success. So he will defend the opponent's best player, whether that is a power forward, 6'10", big bruising guy, or a quick 6'2" point guard. And he'll also bring the ball in the court, sets up the structure of the team, moves the ball around, and is also incredibly athletic. He has some legendary dunks. And of course, being a all-world defender, you have to be very athletic, very, very long, very durable, very have immense conditioning as well. So his strengths are that he is probably the best supporting superstar and second option to a true takeover alpha superstar ever in both playstyle and mentality. He's a guy who, if you have a guy like Michael Jordan who wants to take over the game, who demands the spotlight, who is not afraid, Pippen will be the guy that will be even more powerful alongside this alpha personality. Um, he is someone who's willing to take that criticism and willing to not push back too much on someone like Jordan, who can be very negative, very aggressive at times, but deal with that and absorb that tension for the team and actually improve with it, right? Some other people might wilt when they are faced with that pressure. A lot of accompanying superstars have been pushed out by a overwhelming personality, but Pippen was one who was able to, bear that brunt and actually vastly improve from what his potential was when he started out in the league. So he can feel any weakness on your team. The Bulls used him for various different ways amongst the different title winning seasons, and he is a top 3 all-time guard wing defender. If you still to this day, if you gave me, the opposing team has LeBron, has Michael Jordan, has Kobe Bryant, Pippen is one of 3 people probably that you want guarding those guys. Now, his weaknesses, as I mentioned before, he doesn't take over the offense. So he's not a consistent shooter. That's part of it. If you left him open, he can hit the open 3, hit the open jump shot, but he's not a guy who would, he's not a guy who would, be a knockdown shooter. So you're not as afraid of him catching fire from, taking jump shots. And that means that his offensive game, probably was not, I wouldn't say limited is probably too harsh of a word to use, but not a complete offensive player. And he did have, as part of being a cerebral, intelligent player, I think part of that also meant that he had some mental blocks to be overcome. He didn't come into the league with as much confidence as MJ did. And in the beginning, he was bullied by the Bad Boy Pistons. And most famously, I think in episode 3 or 4, he suffered a migraine that led to their Game 7 collapse. And fortunately, Michael Jordan and Phil Jackson, the Bulls believed in him, and Pippen flourished. But in other situations, he might not have flourished that way in kind of worse environments. And another time is when he refused to come into the game, when Phil Jackson drew up a game-winning shot for Toni Kukoc, who was a rookie. Pippen felt like this was his team now that Michael Jordan had retired in 1995. But Kukoc, but Jackson wanted Kukoc to take this last shot. There was a lot of tension already with Kukoc getting paid more than Pippen and kind of being the golden child from the general manager, who was brought in Kukoc to be the second star next to Pippen. So there are some insecurities there, and some of that has to deal with his background. He grew up really poor, and his contract negotiations were always part of the problems, as we saw in The Last Dance. But overall, not a head case, just someone who you have to be aware of having these might be getting his own head. So now to the fun stuff. How do we translate that to football? So for football, I think Pippen would be a dream player for any manager. His versatility, playmaking ability, athleticism, his defense, all will allow him to truly dominate the center of the pitch. Under any manager like Pep Guardiola or Klopp, who employs high pressing tactics and encourages situational positional switching. So if he can be a guy who you can put in front of this defense he would be a guy who you don't want to waste as a center back. He could play center back if you want him to play center back, but you want him winning the ball and quickly pushing the ball forward with his vision to the attacking wingers or a striker, right? You don't want him. You don't want him to be kind of the next to the goalie in the last line of defense. So he's a guy that you want aggressively attacking the opponent's best playmaker and disrupting the flow of the game for the opposing team. Like, you could say Sergio Busquets employed that wonderfully under Pep. But he can also, I think, defense is only part of his game. His creativity and his versatility were also really important. So a box-to-box midfielder like Toni Kroos is another example of someone that is kind of his equivalent. Someone that can play both defense and offense, can create, can score, just do a little bit of everything. I think Pippin's probably best role is as a box-to-box midfielder. That's someone that you can contribute on both ends. If you want to play him as attack, you also could. And that just speaks to his versatility. You really can't say that about a lot of players. But as an attacker, he would be someone like Firmino. Firmino is, from what I understand, someone who works really hard. He is willing to sacrifice for the team, willing to drop back, press the opponent, and create so that Mane and Salah can score. And that is exactly the type of offensive role that Pippin would flourish in. Someone who can use his athleticism to pressure the opponents, to turn the ball over, and quickly create scoring opportunities. In the end, no matter what position you play him as, you can even play him as a fullback. You could play him as a center back. You could play him as a striker. Pippin's greatest attribute is his versatility, and he allows you to basically fill up any holes you have in your team, and will play any position he's asked and play it to almost world-leading quality. Examples of recent times of success, you might say, are James Milner, who can play fullback, he can play center midfielder, he can play a winger, or Philip Lahm, who might be one of the best examples of that in modern history. Under Pep Guardiola, Lahm was someone who traditionally played fullback, but could inverse his role, move into the center midfield, if need be, drop back to play center back. And that versatility, that positional, that ability to switch positions at all times unlocks a team to perform at its best and its peak. And that sums up Scottie Pippen. So guys, this is kind of how I imagine a conversation would go. Obviously, you guys will pepper me with questions in between, and I would try to address them as best I could. Hopefully, I can add in some clips to kind of better portray that. But let me know what you think, and hopefully, I'll just put something on the schedule for us to record on Sunday. If you don't think, if you don't want to go too much into this, we can do Slumdog Millionaire. I'm fine with that. But I figure if we do this, we can just do like a quick 20 minutes one. Scottie Pippen can be 10 minutes. We can do another 10, 15, another 5 minutes on Dennis Rodman, another 5 minutes on Steve Kerr. We can do some on Phil Jackson. And then there might be, we could do Kukoc as well, potentially. And then if we think this is fun, there's another Kobe documentary coming out, I think in July 5th, and I can even do that one too. I'm even more versed than Kobe. I mean, that's The Last Dance and Jordan. That was kind of the end of, that's the beginning of when I started following basketball. But maybe there's more overlap with you guys because you guys maybe watched MJ a little bit more. Anyways, please take a listen. Let me know what you think, and talk to you soon.